What is this hulking mass of seemingly crumpled up metal in front of me, you ask? This is my Ariens lawn tractor, zero-turn mower. It's had trouble starting since spring began, and I decided I would get myself a new starter and throw that in and try it out. The starter wasn't the issue, so I traced it back to the starter solenoid. On every other tractor, that starter solenoid is in some easy to grab place somewhere near the battery. In this machine, that is not the case. And I looked up Ariens lawnmowers all over YouTube. They weren't there, so I decided to do a public service announcement and make one myself. If you are one of the unfortunate souls who have one of these 14-year-old Ariens, there's a model number and everything. There's probably others like it because, God, they made so many, some with Kawasaki engines. This one has a Briggs & Stratton Intech engine. On this particular model, at least as far as I have found, you have to remove the gas tank in order to get at the starter solenoid, which is behind the gas tank under some framing, which you can only get to if you remove the side cowling, which has some hidden screws. I'm telling you, this was a pain. And so I'm going to put this up and I'm going to sort of show the reverse osmosis right here. I'm going to show you what it took to get to this point, how you can do it easier than I did. I actually tested out the solenoid. I know this is a departure from my other videos, which are all record related, but the solenoid that I had was this Trombetta solenoid. I actually tested it using a tester, and while attaching power to the points here does cause this to make a click, it shows no continuity between these two poles. And if you're going to make a solenoid work, you need not only the jump, but you also need for there to be continuity here. One without the other means that this is a piece of garbage. So I've ordered a new one from Amazon. It does not look quite the same. I have to do some assembly down here. We'll see how the new one is going to fit inside of this monstrosity of an engineering nightmare. But I'll try and document it as much I can in case there's any other poor sod out there who likes to do this work themselves but doesn't have the time to figure out what the heck is going on. Okay, a couple things first. On the left is our bad solenoid, and on the right is the one I just ordered. And I don't know if you can tell, one is just slightly taller than the other. That may hit against the gas tank because mine is so poorly designed, like a piece of crap. Also, you'll notice that this one does not have the same pins. I believe I'm going to have to install these sideways in order to get some clearance. Hopefully the wires will allow me to do that. I did take a video of taking this one apart so I can see where the videos go. There is a brown and white wire, I believe, attached here, and a black wire that attached there. So I'm going to have to do the same thing on this one. All right, so the left-hand side goes to the positive of the battery terminal. The right-hand side goes to the starter mower. The red wire also attaches to the left side for the battery plug. The black wire goes left, and the brown and white wire goes right. And this whole thing installs with those two pins above. That's it. And one quick thing, not only is this setup weird, but it's also not in standard. It's in metric. The 3/8 does not fit. It is a 10mm. Awesome. Okay. Now, oddly enough, for the top posts, these are standard. I can use a regular 1/2-inch driver for these. So, for the driver, one on the left, we're looking at the red for the battery and the red wire coming out here. Make sure these old contacts are clean. Actually, they are pretty clean. This one on the left appears to go towards the battery. This is the red positive for the battery. I'm not going to tighten that too much because I actually want to be able to move those around as needed. I'm going to tighten those up after I get them in place. The red on this side goes to the starter motor. Again, not going to tighten it a whole lot. Actually, this one I will. I kind of remember the positioning of this one. Fit the little wire condom back over the top. The spade on that one sticks out so much it's keeping it from going in place. Probably a little bit why this one was filled with dirt. Splay this out a little. My God, this was not designed well. It is so tight in here. Alright. And a little wire condom for this one. Okay. Black wire attaches over here. Brown and white wire. If I had thought about this and actually gotten some longer wires, I could remount this somewhere that makes more sense. I suppose that ship has sailed. Okay. I'm going to take you down now because you need to see this. The starter solenoid is mounted here and the gas tank goes here. Awful. Oh, my daughter's calling. All right, I believe I found the right bolts. Although it has taken, nice, everyone wants to hear that, right? It has taken some thread out. These are 3/8 volts. Gosh, I don't know what stripped out of there. We'll see. I tried to put an extender on just because of where this thing is located. I'll tighten that after I get the other one in. And I'll snug that one down. And I'll snug this one down. Okay. So the new solenoid is in that terrible to reach spot. I'm going to take a second and clean all this out before I reinstall this gas tank, which I actually had to empty after I got it out. Now it's a pain. This is also not something you want to do if your gas tank is full. All right, cleaned it out a bit. This thing does not just sit in there all nice like it should. This thing has to be squished into place. Again, this thing designed by children. There. So that fits into place. You can obviously see why you absolutely cannot get at the solenoid from here without removing the gas tank. And then the trick is that the gas tank is held into place by this very structural part, the biggest pain about this project, in order to get at the gas tank, was having to remove this piece, which attaches with 2 bolts here and 2 bolts here. And the whole thing is all springy because this whole thing is held on by that. So you got the engine cowl here in the back. Also, not having a manual, did not realize that you could, well, I'll show you this part later. But in any case, to do this easier, you got these square end bolts that go through. You're gonna want to get at least one of them in and set because of how springy this material is. And then get the other one to try and line up the back, or the front part of this, I should say. And believe me, while this looks like a pain, it is so much easier than how I got it off to begin with. Oh, these are not 3/8, which means these are 7/16. That's right, because everything uses 3 different sizes: 3/8, 7/16, and 1/2 inch. Because why use the same bolt for everything when you can make everybody have to search their toolbox for all kinds of sockets and adapters. So as I pull these 2 together, these are starting to line up. Those are 3/8, by the way, so I'll have to get a different socket for those. You know, the hilarious thing, and I'm going to be jinxing myself right now, would be if I get this all back together and it still doesn't work. All right. One bolt right here. Okay. Frame is now reattached, which means this is no longer wonky. This is still in here because there is another piece that holds that in place. But here's the part that I don't tell you about. On this side cowling, you actually have to pop off the orange plastic part, and then it exposes the bolts on the inside so that you can take this drastic thing off. This actually attaches by 3 washers, or 3 nuts. So actually I found that you got to take the gas cap off, slide this back on, attach the gas cap, and then line up these bolts. Actually, this will probably make it easier if I get that one in first. So there's one at the bottom, and I'll actually help to line up top and bottom. There we go. So there's going to be 3 of these total. You're going to want to get that one on first. And these 3 are lock washers, so they've got a little nylon insert. Our 1/2 inch. So far we've had 7/8. Sorry, 3/8, 7/16, and now 1/2 inch. Basically, if you want to do this project, you're just going to do everything I'm doing but backwards. In fact, maybe I can edit this whole thing backwards. It'll look like I'm doing it from the beginning. Okay. That one is in place. And now at the bottom, I don't want to bend down here. Here it is. So 3 bolts to connect this plastic. Oh, and the bolt is so long, my 1/2 inch driver isn't long enough. There you go. And then this piece, these are just little cheap, replaceable push-in. There you go. I've actually ripped off the one on the other side. You know what? I'm gonna leave it off. Well, first there's this gasket that I just found sitting there. I don't know how that stayed there this whole time, but it has. This piece goes over the gas tank. Nope, it's 7/16. Okay, so my 7/16 driver for this section pokes through from under the seat in through the frame. Another nylon lock washer on top of that. Yes, this is all required to change the starter solenoid, which in a perfect world would be mounted, I don't know, like right there, or someplace where you can actually get at it. Of course, the other nut is 3/8. So, how many socket switches is this? And it's not like I can just do all the 3/8 at once and the 7/16 at once, because they all come up at different times in the process. Okay. So the fuel tank is now secure. It's not going anywhere. The side is reattached. I have the fuel line right here. I'm going to reattach the fuel line. There it is. That is all just to get at the starter solenoid. Imagine I did that in reverse, not knowing that this piece could come off, so I had to access all these bolts from underneath until I was able to get enough where I could see that there was another bolt inside that attached to here, so I just ripped that part off, and of course there it was. I should have looked a little harder before. Even changing the starter on this was easier than that, and then I ended up putting the old starter back in because that didn't appear to be the problem. The trick with this, you can get at this bolt just fine. It's a 1/2-inch bolt. You cannot get at this very easily because all this is in the way, so you can't get a 1/2-inch socket on that. You can get just a regular 1/2-inch wrench on it and then use a pair of pliers to twist the whole thing, or it's got a T40 star-shaped bit that you can use if you can get at an angle. What a pain in the butt. I believe hooking up the positive to this required a 3/8. I'm not sure. And then, trying to get everything in there together. We'll see if this thing starts up after all this work. I'm going to go through and do a quick oil change, which actually happens via this hose here. I got to disconnect the zip tie that's holding the quick drain plug. I'm going to change the air filter and the oil filter, and we'll see if this thing fires up after all this work. Okay, so my Ariens Zoom is buttoned back up. Put her all back together. Got the battery back in place. I did get a kit, so I redid the spark plug, even though I think the spark plug was fine. Those could always use a refresh and they're cheap. I redid the air filter, changed the oil filter. I realized that I bought this thing when it was 7 years old, and I had never changed the oil in it or did any of these preventative things. And I think that as it got harder and harder to start, I had to lay on the starter harder, and that just fried out the solenoid. Would have been cool had it not been so hard to access. We got a new fuel filter in there. I put it all back together. One thing I will note, I forgot to put the seat plug back in. And so when the fuel finally started flowing through this and it started up, every time I'd go to release the emergency brake, the thing would shut off on me. Quick Google search told me I needed to plug it back in. which I did, and it fires up very, very fast. This also had a problem where it wouldn't shut off when I was done with it. Sometimes I would actually have to go in the back and unplug the spark plug. That doesn't seem to be an issue anymore. So regular maintenance is great. Change the air filters, change the oil filters. All that stuff will save you having to pull the solenoid out of your zero-turn Ariens, and you should be good to go. Hope this helps somebody out there. I sure would have appreciated this when I was working on it.